EU Foreign Affairs Chief Joseph Borrell said China is aggressively pushing the message that unlike the US, it is a responsible and reliable partner. Holland returned half of a shipment of over 1 million masks because they did not meet standards. Spain and Turkey returned Chinese-made coronavirus test kits, which were found to be correct only 30% of the time. Czech Republic and Slovakia have also complained that medical equipment they received from China did not work. Ireland received a shipment of personal protective equipment from China, 20% of which had to be discarded. The Chinese government response to the allegations of selling faulty supplies were, first, to claim that aid they had received earlier from the EU and elsewhere was also defective, but they had been too polite to complain. And second, to say that the suppliers who sent the faulty equipment were not approved by the government, and that the government basically was unaware of their actions. The issue with this argument, however, is that with a moratorium on exports of medical supplies, any company sending them out of the country would have had to have had government permission, if not government participation. China has been trying to spin the story of coronavirus, saying that it came from Italy or from the US, and that the US is not helping the world. While in actuality, the US has been the single largest donor to international public health for decades, and is the largest global donor to coronavirus. USAID, the State Department, and the American taxpayers have given more than $90 billion for health globally since 2009. The U.S. contribution to the WHO is double as much as China's. And for the coronavirus specifically, the U.S. State Department on February 7, 2020, committed $100 million in coronavirus international aid. Additionally, on March 2nd, USAID committed $37 million to 25 developing countries that were affected by or at high risk of a coronavirus outbreak. Also, the U.S. is the largest financial backer of the Asian Development Bank, ADB, which is donating another $6.5 billion. And President Trump has signed $1.3 billion in foreign aid to help other countries fight coronavirus. So no, China is not helping while the U.S. stands idly by. And while we may still need more evidence to prove the extent of China's lies and how they made the pandemic worse, there is no evidence, not even an allegation, that the U.S. caused the pandemic or made it worse in other countries. In order to promote pro-Communist Party sentiment and to push the message of the Chinese savior, Beijing employs the Wu Mao Army, a group of state-sponsored internet trolls. American Political Science Review explained, the size and sophistication of the Chinese government's program to selectively censor the expressed views of the Chinese people is unprecedented in recorded world history. Today, the Wu Mao Army is thought to be even larger than at their inception in 2013, with estimates of up to 2 million government-sponsored accounts, making as many as 448 million social media posts per year. In spite of the Chinese government Twitter campaign, the mood across the world does seem to be one of blaming China. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government has said that China must pay for the coronavirus. Australia Prime Minister Scott Morrison has ordered a change to the country's foreign investment rules, stating that all foreign investment, regardless of dollar value, must now be subject to a security review. This response came after Greenland, Australia and Risland, Australia purchased 100 tons of medical equipment and shipped it back to China. Many foreign companies had already begun shifting supply chains out of China last year. The coronavirus, however, is speeding this process up. Australian Foreign Affairs Minister Maurice Payne says that China must account for its human rights abuses against the Muslim Uyghur ethnic minority in Xinjiang. British newspapers are calling for the UK to take a stance in support of pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. George Soros wrote, Europe must recognize China for what it is. She is a dictator who is using cutting-edge technology in an effort to impose total control on Chinese society. He has established a regime whose guiding principles are diametrically opposed to the values on which the European Union was founded. The Henry Jackson Society, a UK think tank, released a report stating that CCP China should be sued for $6.5 trillion for coronavirus damages. Quote, China could be sued under 10 possible legal avenues, including the international health regulations, which were beefed up after the SARS outbreak, which China also tried to cover up. The International Council of Jurists, ICJ, and all Indian bar associations have moved to approach the United Nations Human Rights Council seeking compensation from China for surreptitiously developing a biological weapon capable of mass destruction. The U.S. government has passed, or is passing, human rights bills to hold China accountable for concentration camps in Xinjiang, cultural genocide in Tibet, and human rights abuses committed against pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong. The Trump administration is now exploring legal avenues to bring additional suits against China for hoarding medical supplies and for effectively nationalizing U.S. factories in China. China has even enraged former UFC champion, notorious Conor McGregor, who became furious when defective medical equipment was sold by China to Ireland under the guise of international assistance. He wrote, "Truly horrendous. Not only are the prices being raised by these people on all our items, masks, visors, gloves, ventilators, respirators, oxygen containers, screen monitors, you name it, all jacked in price. The batches coming in now are of no use. Ludicrously inhumane behavior." He even went so far as to criticize Fine Gael leader Leo Varadkar, who had suggested that Ireland and China work together on coronavirus research. McGregor told Varadkar to take back this thank you and offer of assistance this instant. It is barbaric what has been done here. One of the most moving anti-China statements came from Cardinal Charles Bo, Archbishop of Yangon, Burma, who spoke out about China's coronavirus misdeeds, and I quote, "Lies and propaganda have put millions of lives around the world in danger." He said that rather than profiting from the pandemic, China needs to fund relief efforts and make restitution. He also went on to highlight the systemic violation of human rights by the Communist Party of China. This statement is particularly poignant when one considers how economically dependent Burma is on China. When even a spiritual leader of a client state speaks out against you, you know that your years of paid friendship have been undone. Global supply chains began shifting away from China last year because of the trade war and because of the Hong Kong protests and because of the Xinjiang papers, which confirmed the existence of concentration camps where China's Uyghur Muslim minority are being tortured and subjected to forced conversion. The coronavirus has pushed other companies out of China because it was physically impossible to continue operations. Others will leave on moral grounds, hopefully. Socially conscious movements in Germany, the EU, and North America will push their governments to decouple from China. Countries like the US, Australia, and Czech Republic seem on the verge of needing no push at all. The fear I have as an economist, however, is that after months of coronavirus stagnation, companies and countries will find themselves short of cash. And it may seem more expedient to just forget the crimes against humanity which China perpetrated and simply begin accepting Chinese money once again in exchange for silence. I'm Dr. Antonio Graceffo, and thank you for tuning in to China Economic Research. You can get my books at Amazon.com. I write about the Chinese economy and wrestling and martial arts around Asia. You can also follow me on Twitter. I tweet about the Chinese economy and the Mongolian economy. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and please subscribe to the channel. I'm Dr. Antonio Graceffo. See you next time on China Economic Research.